Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, and welcome to Change Agents Hall of Fame. Carlos Castaneda launching the psychochemical war is our first topic. And I was hoping I would have a caller tonight, but I don't see anyone there. So just let me introduce the show, and maybe we'll have someone by the time I am finished. Castaneda's books were published and distributed all over the world by the biggest publishers. Time magazine reviewed his books as nonfiction, and he was considered, with his first book, to have published a legitimate anthropological study that also started the whole science validates spirituality meets new physics dialogues that are still core New Age conference topics. Castaneda's ideas about an alternative reality, or separate reality, as he put it, that was better than regular people's reality, and that could be accessed through the teachings of Don Juan, dovetailed with the anti-war and anti-establishment movements. And people believed and adopted the use of plant hallucinogens as a path to personal enlightenment in droves. And there are a lot of people who will still say that Castaneda's work is nonfiction, including publishers at Simon & Schuster, who published a lot of his work. And it also seems clear to me that his work helped create the social means that help build the false reality and the bizarre type of spiritual beliefs that we are now seeing in our society. And our caller's on the line. Kevin, you are the person who came up with the term psychochemical war, and welcome to the show. And would you like to define that term a little better?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to. Well, by the way, thanks for having me, and I appreciate the forum.
No problem.
When you look at psychochemical, you realize that our reality is strictly chemical. It is a reaction of the synapses in our brain responding to certain neurotransmitters. So when we were using that term, we were talking about it in context of addictions that had come up. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the interesting thing is that the substances themselves, which people gravitate toward, to which they become addicted, in quotes, I use that very loosely, are not really addictive. Cocaine's not addictive, nicotine's not addictive, booze isn't addictive. The idea of these addictions comes in my opinion, from this certain way that the brain has been toyed with. And I use toyed again in quotes. It's been manipulated, realistically, and everybody's got to understand that from the cradle. You've been manipulated. But what it does, in my opinion, is fire certain spots in your brain, certain traumas, certain beliefs, certain mythologies, all fire specific spots in your brain. And it seems that the people that are addicted to nicotine share a certain mythology. It seems that the people with a heroin addiction have a common mythology, and it's almost like it's a way to if you steal something from one side, you have to balance it out on the other. And drugs and addiction is a way to maintain, quote unquote, a sense of balance in this fake reality.
Would you say that people seeking alternative realities to the one that most people live in, and
well, it's kind of like, I've watched Channel 3 all my life, and I hate Channel 3.
mm-hmm.
I want to watch Channel 4, or I need to look at Channel 5 or something. And so, as a response to those spots on my brain, I'm changing its frequency. So it has a double-edged sword, I guess you could say, right? And one, it helps you change frequency, but once you get used to that frequency, now you want it all the time.
Okay, so you're seeing spiritual realities as being a frequency that people want to return to all the time. And that,
right, they're looking for it. Everybody needs it, right? We all need that grounding. Where are we? Who are we? It's an existential idea. Who, why, what? What's this all about, Alfie? All that is very powerful, right? And you have to, it's when pseudo-reality meets a need for something different. Cigarettes, that starts a journey to a degree, simply because of the initial early effects, but they wear off. And so now you get locked into channel 3.1, not really quite removed from this reality. You move on to something else. The worst are the pharmaceuticals, are the false frequency modifiers. They're the false frequencies. And this, I think, is a problem in this society today, because there are so many people living in false frequencies. I think that you have to be doped up in order to actually believe what Fox is saying, or what CNN is saying, or what anything else in the mass media is saying.
You have to change the internal reality and make it separate first before you can accept the outer one. Right.
Mm-hmm. You're changing yourself to match the external. It's like how man had to adjust himself to the machine. Nobody was made for that. Nobody is made for a mechanized clunk, 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 clunk assembly line world. Nobody was made for that. It showed up in a milieu, I guess you would call it, that wasn't ready for it. And this is this whole idea of technique. That's where that comes from. All of that which we've spoken about before. And unfortunately, drugs are another technique of trying to remove oneself from nonsense. It's about the only way I can put it. Nonsense. It's like, this is a game. I don't like this game. I don't like this movie. I don't like. So I need to change the channel to get away from it. And hence, we have certain ways of doing that. You can do it incredibly psychoactively, through mescaline and peyote and mushrooms or weed or beer.
Just about anything, really.
Yeah.
Or fatigue, or not eating enough, you can get into an altered state of reality through, changing your body chemistry in a variety of ways, yes, including spirituality. Right. And
this is a whole nother. That's a whole nother can of worms.
A whole nother discussion.
Especially when you talk about Carlos Castaneda. It's like, yes, he was a plant. He was a fake. The guy's got no basic history outside of much, except he has had the establishment give validity to his writing. And that's it.
Yes. Considered a legitimate anthropologist.
Yeah. If you're under 30, Carlos who?
Right.
Don't know the
You'd
guy.
have to ask
Never
his
heard
parents.
of him. but he's supposed to be one of the most influential writers of the 80s, so-called 80s, and the rest. No, I believe in my own mind.
His first book came out in '68.
You know, it's funny, is that apparently he and Timothy Leary didn't get on well.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. What was their problem with each? Well, they were both competing in the same game.
I think Carlos got his balls busted at a party by Timothy Leary, and it never went away.
Oh, for being a phony?
I don't think it was that deep, because I wasn't there, obviously. But as the record shows, there was not a pleasant exchange between the two. And you have to realize they were doing exactly the same thing, and that might be, which is the easiest to mess up and change society. And my way is better. Well, my way is better.
My way is more sophisticated. Yes, my way is more earthy. Right.
Yeah, this whole kind of, again, but if you're going to manipulate a society like this, you're going to engineer it. There's just got to be room for both of them. They have to learn to coexist.
Yeah.
Just like Aleister Crowley and,
and all the rest.
Jim Morrison and the rest of them. Everybody got to stay in. Hello, people. We've got a job to do.
People, work with me here, people.
Yeah, people.
Yeah, right.
Hello. We are changing society. We do not have time for this bickering. Will you stop? You all have roles to play. Mama Cass, you're supposed to die with a sandwich. Jim Morrison, you've got all your songs written, and you're this great esoteric poet. All right? Now die like that, will you? Hey, Hendrix, put down the guitar and come over here. You're right? You can almost hear all of that. And then I'll say, oh, okay, what is it I'm supposed to do? You are supposed to help lead this society down the path of unrighteousness, for God's sake. And I like that little cliche. Did you hear it? For God's sake.
Yes, I get it. Well, it's a paradox, right?
Absolutely.
The path of unrighteousness, for God's sake.
Mm-hmm.
In a way,
as being held up to the light.
They create. When we were talking about this show, we spoke about the different, memes that could have been put into the consciousness with Castaneda's work, and one of the things we discussed was that when you are a spiritual seeker, most people have some sort of spiritual urge to connect with something greater than material reality, and and people who take adopt a spiritual path or practice, with techniques, they eventually do get some sort of result in connecting to something bigger than themselves. And they see that invisible energy, cosmic energy, whatever you want to call it, is real. And after a time of seeing that, they can access that energy. They can tell that it can be manipulated or it can be used to get even more power, or it can be just observed, or just see it as a manifestation, as phenomena or whatever, and along the way, and just observe it rather than use it to get and build power. But Castaneda's whole thing was about
everything has a cost.
Getting power. Yes, everything has a cost, but in his work, he always stresses the fact that if his work was all about power, stalking power, dreaming power, getting power, and using power.
Yes. Just like
yes,
Machiavelli.
And there was no conscience in that. You have to be totally focused on the idea of getting power. You can't have a conscience. You can't care about whether or not what you do affects other people. Right. That's the only way you can
funny.
Yield
if
it.
You listen to these people who want to be the mighty king, who say, I want this power because I'm going to do so much good. That very thought, I'm going to do much good, I'm basically going to impose my will on society, is what the youngsters are getting taught. And some of that metaphysical idea, princes, princesses, unicorns, and the mythical
Avalon,
universe. Right. Even a talking lion, for God's sake. What was that? I can't remember that movie.
Oh, Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah.
Chronicles of Narnia, yes.
Dangerous.
C.S. Lewis.
Dangerous stuff. What they're teaching kids. It's like, yes, in the idea of you perceiving what is good, shoving down your vision on everybody else around you.
For the good of
I'm going
the whole,
to create a just society. It's like, well, what does that actually mean? I mean, teaching these kids to jump pretty big hurdles. I mean, Castaneda seems like he tried to make it easy for everybody to get into. I can do the same thing.
Very accessible.
I can impose my will on people as I see fit because I'm doing good.
Right, because, there is no good and evil. There is no objective.
No.
In a way, Castaneda's work started the whole, the new eternal struggle. The old eternal struggle is between good and evil, good versus evil. The new eternal struggle is there such a thing as objective reality? And is there even such a thing as good and evil? Is there even right and wrong? So you change the whole
Buddhism,
paradigm.
right? You take Buddhism and you turn it into a technical, I guess, religion, if you want to still call it that. And you take those principles and you interject them into this new reality. And so, yes, if I'm killing millions of people in a country and creating the most heinous difficulty for millions of people, is it really wrong? That's the beauty of
absolutely. They questioned. They changed the question. They questioned the question.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's what kids get. What is it? Moral relativism.
Yes.
That's all. Was it really that?
It introduced the concept with his work and put it into the pop culture very, very strongly.
Mm-hmm.
And
so
it also set the stage.
Taking care of my family.
Yes, it set the stage for the corporate mentality, which
is the corporate mentality.
It is the corporate mentality, yes.
I take care of my family. And the bottom line, that's where it stops, right? My social responsibility ends. I have none anymore. My conscience is clear. I don't have to care about my community. And if I do care about my community, I do so in the act of giving. If you've got the, red ribbon for football, I'd gladly donate $100 to that, because I'm doing something for my community. Even though my actions in toto are screwing my community. It's just like, imagine being caught in that position. I mean, how would one handle that? When you've got the means to really take care of your family like nobody's business. But in doing so, you're destroying the lives of tens of thousands of people. I don't think that people used to deal with that very well a long time ago. I think that Jung kind of helped them out with that a little bit.
Well, it was clearer with that when they were dealing with that, whereas now people don't really know if they're dealing with those kind of decisions or not.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because they're so distracted by all the other so-called important things that they are presented with every day in terms of making a decision. So people do not make the connections between I'm going to live like this and this is going to cause someone somewhere in another part of the world suffering. Those connections are not being made anymore.
I can see that. And
that's a separate reality.
Sense. Yeah. Compartmentalized reality.
Yes. The idea that you can live in your own reality. Yes.
Just put it in a box and put it away. I still say I think the most brilliant statement that was made in the 80s was, think outside the box.
Right.
It took me a few years to figure that statement out, but when I did, it's like, oh my God, how brilliant is that? Make known there is a box, and then tell people to think outside it.
And then command people that to
Yeah.
be creative, they have to do it that way and think outside the box, which is not really
puts them in
creative.
The box.
Yes.
No, it's not. In order to do that, they had to take the journals, and they took all of this information and became even more separate from society. Imagine a society of specialists. Each of these specialties has its own esoteric language. I think we call it jargon. And those guys within those little specialties love to talk, just spew the jargon, man. And sit around at a coffee shop or wherever, just spewing it, just, take a very simple concept and really put some jargon around it. It's
all cults
a separatist
also
idea.
use jargon.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
and have their own language. Yes.
Everything. So when you have a country that speaks 1,000 different languages, where's the baseline for understanding? There pretty much isn't one. So people found through television that they can find points of commonality. The kid got shot. I think they should end all guns, take the bullets. I don't think they should. That's about the only connection people have. I think gay people should get married. I don't think they should. That's the level of conversation that is left when the mind has closed and the language is set. People talk at each other anymore, not to each other. What is the word interlocutor? They're no longer interlocutors. They become enemies, even though they don't look at themselves as enemies. Because somebody has to win that conversation. Somebody got to win. It doesn't matter if knowledge was shared or not. And this is the result of what Timothy Leary did and what Carlos Castaneda did. This is the mindset that they've put into a lot of people who have passed that meme onto their children.
Yes,
That's
absolutely. It takes several generations to get that in, yes.
But kids learn quickly, and the first people they learn from are their parents, whether they want to admit it or not. But they picked up a lot. And as long as they're separate from understanding that reality, anything at any time can be implanted along the way. Like I said, you psychologically mess with people by giving them 4 deaths while they're in the transformative era of their life. And you'll have people run to the sex, drugs, rock and roll. You'll have that huge amount that's going to say, I can change it from within. If I just get involved with the system, I can change it from within. Therein began the problem, especially with those who decided that they could change the system from within. because the system is too powerful. It changes you before you even have a chance to change it.
Exactly.
Then they passed it to their children. God bless America. And it wasn't malevolent or anything. And yet, the result is as though a malevolent force turned loose the youngsters of today. Although, there still are the philosophers out there. I didn't believe in it, but
there's a few.
There are those kids that get it. They understand the falseness of the imposed reality. So,
well, if they could get rid of every philosophy department in every college, they'd do it, but they still have some, so.
Yes.
And that's a good thing.
It's something you can't teach because somebody sitting under a tree realizes something one day. Just sitting, dealing with good old Mother Nature.
Reality.
Mm-hmm. And going, all that crap I heard, it's pretty nonsensical. It doesn't really make sense. The other people, they're going to get hammered on pretty hard, but at least they're still there. I thought, they would be squashed out by generation by generation by generation. And it doesn't seem that that's true. So there is some hope in the human spirit being resilient, even through generations, to eventually come to a point where some of these kids are going to be like, no, whatever this reality is just doesn't, it's not working. And even being born into it, even being conditioned to it. The whole thing now, science says, once you're conditioned, you're pretty much regimented, and you don't have any opportunity of changing your mind. And I'm thinking, no, that's probably not true. Probably not true at all.
Right, that's a conditioning in and of itself, that you can't change your conditioning.
Right. And I think that naturally man can do it when it's absolutely, positively necessary. That whatever change is necessary will happen because you have to evolve. You cannot keep going backwards. The planet won't allow it. The planet will not allow it. The consciousness, which is us, which is this planet, will not allow it. Like, you can get away with it for a little while, and we're talking we're talking geographic time anyway. So a few hundred years, or even 1,000 years, is pretty much irrelevant, right?
Yes.
But it will change. It will change. And, that's like, bummer. We had it made, but the people are taking back their power again. They're taking back their power again. Jesus. We've got to go through it again.
Well, we have a little bit over a minute to wrap this up. And what would you say was the most important meme that came through Castaneda's work?
That he was pretty much a big phony. But he
and that it was okay
to
be that? Yeah.
No, it was necessary. He was given all the support he was needed while he was necessary.
Yes, and all the women around him self-destructed too.
Well, they died.
Or committed suicide.
I heard that most of those that were all suicide. They found the woman in the desert.
Yes.
And claim.
A couple of them.
The skeletal remains were hers. Claim through DNA. I keep saying that because I understand the idea of a psyop. And that, how do you build a mythology around somebody? Well, if you want to know that, look at what they did for Ronald Reagan when he died and made him look like the king, the emperor.
Right, the jelly bean eating emperor who died of Alzheimer's. Well, we have got to end at this time, and this has been a good social engineering Change Agents Hall of Fame show, and thank you so much for contributing so much to it, Kevin. And good night to anyone who might be hearing this and will hear it in the future. And thank you.
Stay tuned for more to come.
And stay tuned for more to come.